Like every other industrial machine before it, AI will not get rid of all jobs. Like every other machine, AI will make the batch of goods and services that the average worker needs to live a bearable life much cheaper. At the same time, like all other machines, AI replaces specific skills with non-specific, unskilled labour. That's the difference between being a cotton weaver and someone who operates a cotton spinning machine. In this way, AI makes individual workers more replaceable, as almost anyone can use it. This makes it easier to force workers to accept lower wages because there's always someone out there who can do it instead of you. In fact, being made replaceable in this way makes it easier to encourage you to work longer, harder hours. But if you can be made to work excessive hours, it makes it easier to meet demand with fewer workers, hence unemployment. This is why it's important to be mindful of how much you work. Going above and beyond may feel like what you have to do to keep your job, but economically, you are working hours that you could share with other currently unemployed people. But why can't demand increase? Why can't wages stay the same as prices fall and we all just get to consume more stuff at cheaper prices? Well, partly because employers will, without resistance, use AI in the way already outlined. But also, the ownership of AI technologies, as well as other technology, land, software, energy, data centres, etc., is highly concentrated. This means that a small group of families derive all of the rent, interest and profit generated by the economy, whilst the rest of the population lives only by being paid to work, and doesn't own any resources that they can use to support themselves, either for free or very low cost. Because this group of property-owning families is so small, they live incredibly lavish lives, but their incomes are so large that they cannot spend it all, i.e. their spending does not increase exponentially with their income. By comparison with an economy where large numbers of people owned resources alongside their ability to work, this highly concentrated distribution of resources consumes very little. So if we live in an economy where most people survive off of their ability to work, where technological innovation is used to cheapen labour, and where consumer demand is weak, a technology like AI is destined to, at the very least, not improve living standards. In all likelihood, it could degrade them. At time of writing, unemployment in the UK is at a high level by the standards of the last decade. But 5 years ago, as we emerged from the pandemic, wages fell and unemployment fell with them. Workers essentially were on sale. Clearly, the current high levels of unemployment are related to the deployment of AI. In particular, AI is replacing entry-level functions, allowing the currently employed to do more for the same pay. Higher output for the same hours means it is cheaper to produce whatever good or service you provide. If you are using a technology that is widely available and used in the production of many other goods and services, a whole bunch of the stuff that you use every day will be cheaper. As the small amounts of inflation that are the policy of the Bank of England, say 2 to 3%, continue to eat at your wages, even as your wages increase over time, you, as one of the lucky employed people at this time, will slowly become a cheap worker. Your wages can be held below inflation, and your living standards will not massively fall as the cheapening of goods counteracts the inflation. As this begins to happen, as prices slowly inflate inch by inch every year, we could see unemployment fall as workers become cheap, making it easier to make a profit out of working them for a full-time week, since it now takes only a smaller amount of work to afford the basics, with the rest of the time being potential profit. But this outcome depends on a few different variables. Firstly, will the rich begin to consume more, making it necessary to justify increasing output by employing more workers? Or will they still consume only a small bit more, but increases in output made possible by AI mean that it's unnecessary to employ more workers to meet this new demand profitably? The latter scenario is, I think, more likely. But what happens if workers demand a 4-day week, or there's an inflation-beating increase in the minimum wage that workers themselves actually police and enforce? In that timeline, there is a reduction in the supply of working hours and an increase in the price of each working hour. In effect, this squeezes margins for businesses, making it harder to make a profit. Weaker profits mean the rich have less to reinvest, reducing demand for assets, including, for example, housing, making it marginally easier for members of the public to buy a home or other assets. Similarly, this reduced demand for assets will reduce competition with the government for productive resources, making it marginally cheaper for the government to build or buy back assets, like hospitals or schools, freeing up budgets for increased spending. Or, if the rich are willing to downgrade their lifestyles to continue investing at the same rate, we should see a transfer of their consumption to the average person. A transfer of consumption that, in a seeming paradox, will increase the revenues of businesses and allow wages to rise even further, improving living standards for the average person. Of course, this is a simplistic picture since we live in an economy with plenty of private monopolies and lots of landlords, whose prices do not obey the laws of supply and demand. So, AI promises to increase unemployment as the push for profit lowers wages, preventing average consumer demand from increasing whilst maintaining the profits paid to those whose consumption will not increase by much. In other words, all of the extra productivity achieved through AI will be poured into an economy that doesn't want more stuff, which means there is less need for workers. But strikes, including rent strikes, that either reduce the rate of investment, making assets more affordable to the public and the government, or that transfer consumption to the average person, are necessary to preventing this outcome. In fact, they're more necessary than ever. And also, it couldn't be more pressing that we reverse the redistribution of assets that has occurred over the last few decades, through whatever sort of policy mechanism takes your fancy, from increased taxation on wealth to nationalisation. In many ways, the story of modern industrial economies is a story of de-skilling, of an economy where machines make it possible for any person to produce high-quality goods with very little skill or effort. Even taking a realistic view of the capability of AI, which might not be all that it's cracked up to be. It certainly represents a significant new chapter in this story. And an economy where it's even harder to find high-skilled, well-paid work is an economy where access to resources for the majority will be reduced, which makes it even more important than ever that the average person be able to own their own resources, so they don't have to work very much to have access to them.